If you're wanting to invest in real estate, get around people who are doing it the best. Don't get around your flipper guy in your town that does 1 or 2 homes a year, or a real estate agent that does 2 or 3 sales. Find somebody who is the best. I don't even care if they're in your town or not.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Jack Boss Show. Yes, we named it after my own name because with that, we can go in any direction we want to go. We're not stuck in just one niche that becomes repetitive. So with that said, today we're talking about the concept of confidence, clarity, and community with our guest, Ken Joslin. Ken, you're one of the biggest experts in that subject matter, so welcome to the show.
What's up, my friend? Good to be here with you, man. Honored to spend a little time with you this afternoon.
Wonderful. I'm honored to have you on here. So let's jump right into it and tell me, before we even go into your background, tell me, why do you focus on these 3 subjects?
Yeah, I've been working with business leaders for about 35 years. I spent half of that, 35 years. I spent half of that in full-time vocational ministry, pastoring churches and planting churches around the country. Working with pastors and ministry leaders. And the other half of that, I was a top producing mortgage broker in the state of Georgia for about 8 years, back from 01 till about 08, 09, when the world ended, as far as real estate went. And number 1 wholesale broker for SunTrust and Countrywide several years in a row. Got back out of that in 2017, back into real estate. 2019, I finished 7th out of 3,725 agents in the fastest growing real estate brokerage in the state of Georgia. And then ran into a little 5'5" dude named Grant Cardone in October of 2019. And I tell Grant, this kind of the story goes, I mentioned off air, I've spoken for Grant several times. And I told Grant the first time I went to 10X boot camp, it was crazy. I felt like the businessman on the inside of me got born again. And from that point forward in 2020, we're 3 years into GSD, multiple 7 figures now in revenue, just on the coaching and consulting side. And man, we're having a blast, man.
That's fantastic. So now again, but that doesn't really answer the question of why do you focus when you're coaching and in your things on confidence, clarity, and community?
Yeah, I think those are the 3 main components that every business leader needs to have. Confidence is currency. You spend that currency every single day in every decision you make and every relationship that you build. And I think confidence is one of the number 1 attributes and keys. I mean, I get to hang around with some pretty successful and significant leaders in my life. I run one of the top masterminds in the country. I've got a billionaire. I've got 7, 8 guys that are, making $1 million a month. I've got multiple people in that group who are 7-figure guys that are making 7 figures a year. And then I think on probably the low end of where we're at, guys are in the $500,000 to $600,000 a year in annual income. So I get to hang around some really successful people. And I think the number 1 trait that I see out of them is confidence. They're confident in what God's put in them, dream, the business, what that looks like. They're really confident in that. And they're confident also because they hang around some pretty amazing people. And that's where I think the community component comes in. The community's huge. Your relationships really are the number 1. They are the number 1 thing that help you scale, grow quickly, circumvent some growing pains, is being able to not just learn and glean from yourself and your own mistakes, but being able to learn and glean from some other pretty amazing people in your life and learn what the mistakes they've made so you don't have to make those same mistakes.
That's right. So, okay. So with that said, let's dive a little bit, and I 100% agree with you. I actually use that same thing, the currency of business is confidence. I say that all the time too, and that's actually something that has to be learned because people don't believe that when I say that, they look at me weirdly. It's like, what do you mean? But it's something that you learn over time. Like the difference between, I always say, between a 19-year-old that starts Facebook and keeps control of it and another 19-year-old that doesn't do it is both are smart, both are successful, is just pure confidence. Like Mark Zuckerberg, when the big venture capital guys, when the big funds, when all of them started to pry control of him because they're like, you're a 19-year-old kid, you can't do it. The number 1 thing that made him hold on control to that company is his confidence, his unwavering, unshaking confidence. So confidence is the most underrated kind of superpower I think a business can have. So would you agree with that?
Oh, most definitely, man. And I think there's a couple of things to being able to gain confidence. One of the over the past 3 years since I started GSD has not just been a business journey for me, Jack. It's also been a health journey. I'm down 82 pounds in right at 3 years. My goal is 106. I've got about 24 more pounds to go. I created a concept at the very beginning of my company and in that health journey called incremental, not monumental, which is small daily discipline decisions over time always equal monumental results. Success cannot escape you when you do the right things every single day. I mean, when you're getting up and you're doing things, I was up at 4 a.m. this morning. I was up at 4 a.m. Actually, I was up at 2:36 this morning. I woke up early and couldn't go back to sleep. Yesterday, I'm up at 4 a.m. Like the first time I spoke for Grant it was December the 9th of 2019. I spoke to his whole sales team, about 175, 180 people there in his office. And then I spoke to his senior leadership team, and he had handpicked 12 of us out of his first ever mentorship. He had handpicked 12. I was the one that he handpicked. Grant handpicked me to share my story amongst his entire staff and then with his senior leadership team. And I remember sitting in that room that day. And I mean, there was 12 pretty amazing entrepreneurs in that room. And I've said this over the past 2.5 to 3 years. Literally yesterday, one of the guys that was in that room, I just saw him on social media for the first time in probably 8 months to a year. He just disappeared. Like I had no idea what he was doing. I didn't know what was going on. He just literally disappeared. So incremental, not monumental, is doing the things every single day, small daily discipline decisions over time, always equal monumental results. And people say, Ken, what's the secret to success? What's the secret to building a multiple 7-figure coaching and consulting business in 3 years? Literally, we hit 7 figures in our second year. We're doing conferences around the country called Create with some of the most amazing entrepreneurs in the world. I mean, I've got John Maxwell speaking at my event, Jesse Itzler, Ed Mylett, my good friend Vic Keller, who had 11 companies successfully acquired from Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway for an unreported amount of money, which I'll tell you was around $8 billion. And then he served as the CEO for Berkshire Hathaway Automotives for 3 years and grew it from a $7 billion a year company to $11 billion a year company. So I get to spend time with some of the best business minds and business leaders and amazing human beings on the planet. And I'm telling you, every single one of those guys, and I've said this to Vic, I've said it to Grant, I'm not the sharpest guy that I've ever been. In that room of 12 that day with Grant, 10 of them were sharper than I was. 11 of them were probably better looking and more intelligent than I was. I got on a Zoom call with Grant about a year ago. It was 1,400 of us on the call, and Grant said, "I'm going to give you some homework." I said, "Okay, Grant, what's the homework?" And he's talking. Well, he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to 1,400 of us. And the homework was we had to ask 5 people, Jack, to describe us in one sentence. So I text Grant and I text Jared. I say, "Hey, I got a question." So Grant calls me preacher. So he gets on and he goes, "What you got, preacher?" I said, "Hey, G, this guy named Grant Cardone gave me homework. I'm supposed to ask 5 people to describe me this week in one sentence." And I said, "Since you and Elaine are sitting side by side, I'd love for you to be the first 2. And he just kind of laughed just a minute and he thought a second and he looked up and he said, "Ken," he goes, "you are always there. Every time I look up, you're there. You always show up." And you want to talk about building confidence, Jack? Show up when you don't feel like it. I've got one of the things I teach on a lot is my morning routine. John Maxwell says, "Show me your daily routine. I'll tell you how successful you're going to be." Yeah. My morning routine is ironclad, dude. It is absolutely ironclad every single morning. 4 a.m., goals, gratitude, affirmations, top 3, my worship time, my gym time, my clothes, even my gym clothes are laid out in my chair, in my sitting area in my master bedroom. It's not rocket science. It's called incremental, not monumental. It's called being consistent every single day. When you do that over time, you start to build momentum, the confidence will build.
Now, how did you come up with that? Let's say Grant Cardone had you share your story. Share your story with us too.
Yeah. So when I first met Grant, I was making about 10, 12 grand a month doing real estate. I was bored to death. I literally was bored to death. I was working 10 or 15 hours a week. Real estate was super easy for me. I had just come off of pastoring for about 7 years. I was umpiring college baseball and refereeing college basketball. I'm traveling and I'm making, for most guys, I didn't have any debt. Most people making 12, 15 grand a month is great, but I was bored. I literally was bored. I saw Grant on an Instagram article, an Instagram ad, like in October of 2019, had no idea who he was, never heard of him, didn't know who he was. But what I did get out of watching that video was I'm like, dude, this dude's got energy. Like I don't get around very many people that have more energy than I have, that are more fired up and passionate about what they're doing than I am. And I saw him and I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know who this dude is, but he's got something. I hopped on a webinar a week and a half later on a Saturday, a free webinar about mentorship and coaching. And I mean, I've been a mentor, pastor, coach for 25 years. I just wanted to hear what this dude had to say. And before he got done, he was supposed to go 90 minutes. I had my credit card out. I had no idea what he was selling. Had no idea what it was going to cost. I got my credit card sitting on the table and he pitches his first ever mentorship for $997, 12 weeks. I hit the phone number, boom. Jack Lombard, who's has been Grant's number one sales guy, Contract Jack, for the last 3 years, was the sales guy. He was brand new, was the sales guy who picked the phone up when I called. I joined the mentorship for $997. We had our first call 2 days later on a Monday night. Now, I'm in the midst of working on a $3 million commercial deal. This is my largest deal ever, Jack. It was a $78,750 commission is what my commission was there. And Monday afternoon, my appraisal comes back in at $2.625 million. Now, I'm representing, yes, exactly right. I'm representing the buyer. The seller is unrepresented. He's a 72-year-old Chinese man who doesn't speak English. Mm-hmm. So I'm having my representation on his side is his 22-year-old grad student daughter. My deal is dead. It is dead. That's 1:00 in the afternoon. Monday night, I hop on this call with Grant and he goes, come to 10X boot camp in Miami this week. I'll give you the $1,000 you paid for the mentorship back. The tickets are like $4 or $5 grand, whatever they were. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to invest in myself. And I flew to Miami on Thursday night, 3 days later, with a $78,000 deal that just died. I flew in. We did 10X boot camp on Friday. By the end of Friday, I'm like, where in the world has this dude been my whole life? Like I was so on fire. That's when, as I explained and shared to Grant, the businessman on the inside of me got born again. Like something lit on the inside of me. Saturday morning, I come in for day 2. I go into the Cardone licensee session with my good friend, Richie Dolan, who ran it for Grant, who actually got it off the ground for Grant and became a $25,000 Cardone licensee, and walked out in the hallway with Richie and 2 other friends of mine who also became licensees. And there's 4 of us in the hallway, and Grant walks down the hallway. There's a little security detail about to go on stage, and Richie introduces him to Corinne and Dr. Allah, and then introduces him to me. And Grant looks me in the eye, and he's 5'5". I'm 5'10". He's a little dude. And he points his finger right in my face. He goes, what are you here for? And I said, 2 things, Grant. This is what I'm here for. I pastored a church a long time. I planted several churches, and it's very hard. And I want to blow the lid off my mindset of what's a lot of money so I can help pastors develop their business leaders in their church so they don't struggle with financing the vision and the dream that God put in their heart. He spent 5 minutes with me, and he looked at me and he goes, Ken, if you'll let me, I'll help you. I said, yes, sir. So they usher him into the next session. I'm standing there with Richie and a girl named Sherry Ennis, who ran the community, the first ever community, the mentorship that Grant did. And they're both like, listen, I've been working for Grant for 6 months, 7 months. I haven't spent 5 minutes with him total. And he just gave you 5 minutes of his time. And so an hour later, we had a Q&A session with Grant. There's 20 of us, 25 of us. It's only the people that are in our mentorship program. And I walk into it. I grab the mic. I'm the first one. I pitched the deal to him that I just told you about. The $2.625 million appraisal, $3 million. I shared the whole thing. And Grant leaned across the table and he looked at me, Jack, and he said, preacher, buy the building. And I was like, I'm at this point, probably 200 million in real estate transactions. Not like I'd never done a deal. I'd done lots of deals. I was one of the top mortgage brokers in Georgia and now one of the top real estate agents in Georgia. And he looked at me and he goes, Ken, if you buy the building and overpay for it, when your client sells it, somebody will overpay for it from him. I said, okay. I got done at the end of the day and I called my buddy Steve on the phone. I said, Steve, he's an African businessman, Steve Unichukwu. I called Steve on the phone and I said, man, you're not going to believe this. I'm down here in Miami at this thing called 10X boot camp with this guy named Grant Cardone. I'll never forget what Steve said next. He goes, oh, I love Grant Cardone. I've got money invested in Cardone Capital. I said, well, fantastic. Let me tell you what he told me to do. And he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to fly home on Monday. I'm going to meet with a seller. I'm going to negotiate a seller held second for the $365,000 we're short. We're going to close it on Wednesday, which is exactly what we did. And I made $78,750 on Wednesday. Wednesday night, we get on the mentorship call. There's 1,400 people there. The first person they do is ask me. The first thing they do is, where's Ken? They said, did you get your deal closed? I said, yes, sir, I did. And I held my check up. I held my wire up for $78,750. And from that point forward, Grant, I made 129. I closed another 1.7 million in the last six. I made $129,000 the last 6 weeks of 2019. Started GSD, got my Cardone licensee, and the rest is history. 3 years. It's been an unbelievable ride. I started my health journey about 2 months before that, and I'm down to 80 plus pounds. Now I just brought in a VP of ops and a VP of sales, 2 6-figure salary positions, which is the first time I've ever done 2 of those at the same time.
That's scary, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, but we're having a blast, man. I'm having more fun right now than I've ever had. And you know, you want to talk about confidence. You know, when you get around guys like Grant, and people ask me all the time, how do you continue to get around guys like that? I mean, I was on the phone with Vic Keller yesterday. He's a billionaire. I'm on the phone with him. We just called, we were in Cabo last week together. We drove over to the Ritz and had breakfast with him and his wife. You know, how do you get around those people? And here's, if I had advice to leave your people, this is the number one thing I talk about and I get asked about all the time, is great leaders want something for people, not from people. Like I didn't want something from Grant. I didn't want anything from him. When I got on a 15-minute scheduled call with Vic Keller back in August, I know who he is. One of my best friends is a CMO of one of his big companies. Now he owns 17 companies, and he's a CMO of one of those companies. And he set a call up with me, and we get on a call for 15 minutes, and he goes an hour and 27 minutes. And the last 10 minutes, he asked me 6 times, Ken, I love your passion. I love your vision. I love what you're doing. How can I help? I said, Vic, I don't need anything from you. I don't need any. He asked me over 6 times. 6 times, I said, you know what, Vic, here's what you can do. I said, I've got a mastermind in Scottsdale, November the 1st. I'd love for you to come spend 3 days with us. He goes, I tell you what I'll do. I'll come and I'll spend 1 day. I said, okay. The next week, he sends me a text. I'm on a flight going to Dallas, Texas to speak on my good friend Marie Cosgrove's TV show. She's one of the top female CEOs in the country. And then I'm flying to New York to speak for my buddy Josh York, Gym Guys, the 89th fastest growing franchise in the country. Spoke to his top 100 franchisees. Then I'm coming home. It's a 48-hour trip. I'm on the runway headed to Dallas. And I get a text from Vic, and he says, come spend 4 days with me in Whitefish, Montana at his place. I'm like, I'm in. Text my executive assistant. I said, hey, change my travel plans. I spent 4 days. Vic shows up the 31st. Monday was October the 31st. It was Halloween. He shows up that afternoon. He flew in from Omaha. You want to know who he had dinner with at his house on Sunday afternoon? Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett. Yeah.
He had dinner with Warren on Sunday afternoon. He's flying to my mastermind in his jet. And he spent not just 1 day with me. He spent 3 days. And now every mastermind and every event, he was one of my keynotes at Create this year. And,
wonderful.
So unbelievable. Yeah.
So let's dig into that a little bit more. I know one of the key things that you mentioned is confidence, clarity, and community. So obviously we're working a lot through the community factor right now. Mm-hmm. So how do you connect with like somebody listening to this right now and is basically saying, okay, that's great. I wish I could meet all those different people. What do you tell them? How do they meet people, and how do they get? It's a beautiful saying. Great leaders want something for people, not from people. Mm-hmm. So if somebody is at that point that Vic Keller is, and you come to him, how do you figure out what you can want for him and how you can help him without knowing ahead of time, because you haven't had a chance to talk to him before. You haven't had a chance to figure out what he needs. So you're getting 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. How do you manage that conversation in a way that it does extend? What is kind of like the secret to that?
Be passionate about the vision God's put in your heart. Be passionate about being a connector. Connect people. I'm a connector. There's one guy, I don't know if you know Randy Garn or not. Randy's one of my dear friends, New York Times bestselling author. He's on the board with Tony Robbins, best friends with Dean Graziosi. Randy's the only guy I know in the world that's a better connector than I am. He knows everybody. And he connects people. He's connecting me with Ed Milet. He's connecting with so many people. It's insane. but I'm a connector. So when I get on a call or I get in front of somebody, immediately my mind, Jack, is thinking, who does this person need to know? I'm on a Zoom call with Gary Brecka. I assume you know who Gary is. He's partners with Grant Cardone and 10X Health Systems. Gary's a dear friend. He's part of my mastermind. I'm on a call with him, my buddy, Dr. T out of Chicago, and Dr. Rob Kelly out of San Antonio. Dr. Rob's the number one addiction alcohol doctor in the world, 97% success rate. Dude, his A-listers, his list of A-listers that he's helped get off of alcohol, it'll make your head spin when you see some of his Zoom calls. And I want to call with him on doing a podcast just like this. And we got through the podcast and I said, Dr. Rob, what can I do to help you? And he's British. He loves Manchester United. So we really get along. And he looks at me and he goes, what did you say? I said, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And he goes, mate, nobody asked me what they can do for me. They always ask, what can I do for them? And I said, well, I'm not that guy. I said, what can I do for you? And what I do, I got him on that Zoom call with Dr. T and Gary Brecka, and I introduced him to some guys he did not know. And that's what I do. I'm a connector. So immediately when I meet somebody, if they ask me what's going on in my life, I'm gonna cast a very passionate and convincing vision of what God's put in my life to be able to help business leaders build confidence, gain clarity, and create community. I'm going to share some stories of the impact that we're making in business leaders' lives across the country. And then my first thought is, okay, who do you need to know? Who can I connect you with? I've got an extensive, I'm literally Jeff Finster, CEO for Everbowl, top 40 under 40 this past year. Literally just texted me about being on his podcast. Jake Carls, 2 hours ago, top 30 under 30 CEO of Midday Squares, the fastest growing chocolate company in the world, texted me 2 hours ago about coming to Create and being a part of my mastermind. So when you get around those guys, I'm like, okay, Jake, who do you need to know? Okay, Jeff Finster, I was in DC 2 months ago with a friend of mine whose brother owns South Block. It's a acai bowl chain in DC. He owns 15. We got to talking and he's like, yeah, I'm looking for blah, blah, blah. And I said, dude, do you know Jeff Finster? He goes, I know who he is. I heard him speak at one of the big franchise things for acai bowls. And I said, well, how about I put you guys in a text message together? He was like, you would do that? I said, of course I would. So I text Jeff because he's a good friend of mine. And I text Amir and I got them together and said, hey, you guys need to know each other. This is Amir. This is what he owns. And here's Jeff. And here's what he owns. And you guys are two great guys. Now go help each other. So I think if you want to get around those people and you do get around those people, like with guys like Grant, they just want you to be successful. He just wants you to win. That's it. He wants you to win. And the way you win is by taking the information they give you and putting it into practice.
So then tell us about Growth Stack Drive. Growth Stack Drive. What is that? I mean, obviously it's a company that you provide coaching services and other things for, but tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So we do on GSD, we do our podcast called As the Leader Grows. Which is also the title of my best-selling book. Really helping business leaders, again, build confidence, gain clarity, create community. The book that I did was really about significance versus success. What does it look like to live a significant life versus just chasing success? What does it look like?
Here's the title again, just for the audience to hear it one more time. The book
called As the Leader Grows.
Okay.
And it's really about living a life of significance over chasing a life of success, because they're two totally different things. So we got that. We do our Create conference. We do that twice a year in Atlanta in January, and in July in Dallas. I've got Brendan Bouchard already booked, Gary Brecka already booked, John Maxwell booked for this next one. My good friend Joseph Martin, who is the founder and CEO of BoxyCharm. He exited for $518 million. Vic Keller will be there at this next one. I mean, just a phenomenal lineup of entrepreneurs and world-class human beings. So we do the conference twice a year in 2 different cities. And then I do my mastermind 4 different spots around the country and in Puerto Rico. We just got back from Puerto Rico a couple weeks ago, which isn't a bad place to do a mastermind. Yeah. Very
nice. Yes. Very, very cool. So now how does somebody get a hold of you?
Instagram's the easiest. It's at Ken Joslin, KenJoslin. I finally got the blue check mark about a month or 2 ago. So all the 18,000 fake accounts trying to get you to buy scam Bitcoin, they're gone now. So you can connect there. Easiest way to get me, at Ken Joslin. I handle my own Instagram account. My team actually sees the DMs on the CRM, but I'm the only one that answers.
Right. Absolutely. I do the same thing. We're almost at the check mark right now. We're figuring that part out, but very good. So now, Last kind of thing I want to dig into is like, if the audience, so go into that perhaps just one more time, a little detail. Somebody's starting out right now and somebody has not yet been a connector. How do you start out building that network over time? Just one person at a time, or is there any kind of secret strategy or
No,
something?
it's always one person at a time. And that's, and
I
again,
figured
this,
I just wanted you to
yeah,
say it. I want to make sure.
it's the incremental, not monumental, Jack.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
literally,
people always out there looking for that secret hack, and I'm glad you're
yeah,
saying that there's no such thing. So thank you.
it's not, it doesn't exist. Now there are anomalies out there. I mean, there are guys that step up like Alex Hormozy. There are guys that step up that are like, you look at them and you go, how in the world did this dude do that fast? I mean, we've done stuff really, really fast. I don't know anyone else who's done what we've done in the last 3 years. I know them all. I don't know anyone who's done what we've done. But literally what we're seeing is again, incremental, not monumental, small, daily, disciplined decisions. Like every single day, it's goals, gratitude, affirmations, top 3. In the second half of the day, it's wins 1% better, goals, and a scoreboard. Like every day, I'm locked in on what I know God's put in my heart. People go, well, how do you, when you get around people, how do you cast a convincing vision? Well, you need to know what your goals are. If you can't look somebody in the eye and Jack goes, Ken, what are your goals? Super simple. On my real estate, it's 1, 16, and 20. I have 3 numerical goals. One person to lead my team, which I have, $16 million in transactions this quarter, and 20 FLQAs in EXP. Those are my goals. On the GSD side, it's 50, 100, 500, 1,000. 50 people on my mastermind, that's 40 to 50K a pop, which is 2.2 million. 100 courses, 100 people in my community, which is $6,000 a pop. That's 600K. 500 people at my Create conference 2 times. That's like 2.4 million. And then 1,000 of my courses. So it's like another 1.6. It's like 5.192 million total. I know exactly what their personal goals: lose 106 pounds, time with my girls, me healed and whole. And then I took up a ridiculously huge, insane goal back in November. I started playing golf. I want to shoot in the 80s in 24 months. And that's right. Those are my goals. And I literally write them down every day.
That right there is probably the hardest goal of them to meet.
Do you know why I did that, Jack?
Why?
I did it for this right here. It's a mindset thing, because golf is all about mindset. It's all about conquering all the shit that goes on in there. Because you know how it is if you play golf. I take lessons. I do it all. I learn again from just in golf, just like I do in everything else I've ever done in my entire life. I learn from the best of the best of the best. Absolutely. And you'll get out there and you'll hit a shot and you'll be like, oh my God, I need to be on the PGA Tour. And two shots later, you hit it in the water of the woods, and you're like, what the hell am I even doing out here? Like golf is the one, and I played a ton of sports growing up, still play basketball a lot, but golf's that one sport where you're like, what in it is roller coaster. And so I set that 80s in 24 months specifically for my mindset to grow my mental capacity.
Very good. I like that. I enjoy that because, and as I said, I actually we're picking up golf as a family in the next few weeks. Basically just Saturday mornings, take a family class. It's a family thing with our 15-year-old daughter and my wife and I, and that'll be a lot of fun, but it's more like a family activity, because I know to get really, really good, it's the toughest sports out there, because it's not a physical technique sport. It's a mindset sport more than anything. 100%. And very good. So, well, it was wonderful having you on the show here. So if you're our audience is a lot of people that want to get into real estate, particularly that perhaps are more at the beginning stages of real estate, or they are very successful in their professions, but not necessarily in real estate. Well, given what you know about success, about connection, about confidence, clarity, community, what would you tell somebody who is in that position? What should they do to take it kind of like to the next level? What should they be thinking of?
I have a quote that I wrote in my 10X planner. I had a 10X planner for a year and a half until I created my own. And I tell Grant, I put his planner on steroids. Like mine's like the super rocket fuel version. And I added goals, gratitude, affirmations, top 3, 1%, wins, the whole 9 yards in mine. But I wrote a quote in Grant's journal for a year and a half. And then when I got my journal created, I have it printed in the bottom right-hand side, and you can see it right here. For those of you guys watching on video, it's printed right there on the bottom left-hand side of my page. Get in rooms with people who think bigger than you do. If you're wanting to invest in real estate, get around people who are doing it the best. Don't get around your flipper guy in your town that does 1 or 2 homes a year, or a real estate agent that does 2 or 3 sales. Find somebody who is the best. I don't even care if they're in your town or not. Find actually not just one, find the top 3 guys or women that you can get connected with, fly to wherever they are, offer, dude, what will it cost me to take you to lunch? I'll give you $100, $500, $1,000. Come with a great list of questions. One of the things I learned from my mentor, John Maxwell, 20 years ago, great leaders ask great questions. Find some great questions and ask them to spend time with you and find out. You want to do real estate? Find the guys that are doing it the best and get around them.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you very much. With that said, guys, that concludes really our podcast right now. As always, make sure you give us a 5-star review, share it. If you're watching it on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button, share it with your friends. And with that said, Ken, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you.
And Zach, I appreciate it, buddy.